associate lecturer in the English department, and I regularly teach scientific writing classes and occasionally some other creative writing and literature related classes, usually tying into environmental studies. So I also co-direct the environmental studies program, and as part of that I teach the intro level introduction to environmental studies class every fall and do other kinds of administrative stuff related to that program. We just started a new BA in environmental studies this semester, so we've been doing a lot to try to get the word out about that and advertise classes for the next semester and all that stuff. Being in nature can have documented mental health benefits. You know, there have been studies done showing that even short periods of time spent in a natural space lowers cortisol levels and lowers blood pressure, and there have even been studies done within hospital settings where there are green spaces of some sort for patients recovering from different kinds of procedures have access to, and how their time, their recovery time is shorter than people who don't have that kind of access or don't participate in those kinds of programs.
I think that there's an economic aspect to this that has to be confronted. I don't want to generalize about like American experience, and you know the economy is really complicated too. But I think that too often protecting, conserving natural resources, green spaces, etc., is pit against things like economic growth. And so I don't think that those things have to be opposed to one another. And I think that we don't necessarily need to give economic growth such a prominent position in our values. I think what we need, to think about again, like what really makes us happy, what is human flourishing, and are there ways in which we can support each other in non-monetary ways, like through mutual aid and just, community and helping one another, sharing economies. Like those can promote positive relationships and also tread lightly on the earth. And so I think that consumerism, there's always going to be a desire to make money, but I think we, especially in like times of economic stress, like maybe what we're currently experiencing, we need to kind of just get back to human values and thinking about ways that we can support each other and kind of like basics of health and the food that we eat and some of these more fundamental things.
Really focusing on the ways that community, like kind of to piggyback off of what Lucy was just saying, communities coming together around the issue of sustainability is probably the most productive way to go about that, rather than the kind of like, how can I as an individual limit my carbon footprint? I mean, those are, it is important on an individual level to do our best to make sustainable choices, but it can also start to feel very, it can start to feel like a bummer. It can just feel like I'm just sacrificing all these things and nobody else is doing it, so why should I? But when we come together and see that there are, things like, Lucy and another faculty member hosted a clothing swap and talked about, the perils and environmental problems with fast fashion, like I mentioned earlier, and seeing that in community there are ways to make these kinds of, sustainable living choices fun and friendship building and community building. There's resources in the community that already exist that can be plugged into, like the Chattanooga Free Store and other kinds of initiatives like that are all about bringing people together around these kinds of issues. Again, rather than making it feel like, I as an individual have to like change the way I'm doing everything and essentially make myself miserable trying to be the most, sustainable person possible.